Welcome viewers to this session. I would like to thank you all for watching my YouTube channel. So in this session, what I'm trying to discuss is issues pertaining to mandatory and also discretionary payments that have to be made to employees. Could be payments, but also certain privileges that the employees have to enjoy by virtue of being an employee. So we need to know that in any work relationship between the employer and the employees have to kind of provide some kind of service to the employer, and this employer in return has to provide some kind of payments or remuneration, and also some benefits and also some privileges that the employee has to enjoy. So when the employee has provided such kind of services, what we need to know in terms of the mandatory payments is the employer has to provide salary or wages to the employee. So these wages could be paid monthly or sometimes weekly, depending on what they have agreed in the terms and conditions of service with the employer. And also that's what the law provides. And also at the same time, the employer is also supposed to provide pension, as unless the employees are exempted or the employer is exempted from provision of pension as per the Pension Act. And in terms of that, the employer has to provide 10% of the employer contribution and also 5% of the employee contribution. And the employee contribution is deducted from the employee on behalf of, is the employer deducting from the employee salary, but is limited together with the 10% or the minimum of 10% that the employer has provided. There are certain employers who provide more than the 10%, and also that's when you need to also to appreciate. And apart from that, there is also issue belonging to the life assurance, to say whenever you are on pension, you are supposed to provide for life assurance. This is an insurance that is provided to the employees when they have died. So the dependents tend to get a minimum of 1 times annual salary. Also, depending on what you have agreed, you might provide 1 times annual salary, 2 times annual salary, 3 times annual salary, and even So that's what some employers tend to provide. But the minimum should be 1 times annual salary. And at the same time, even the pension contributions, there is a minimum of 10%, but the employer can contribute more than 10% as employer contribution. So all that, and also it's very, very, very important that we do able to appreciate. And the admin cost of the of the life assurance is always provided by the employer. And what also do we need to appreciate is also issues of leave. And when you talk about leave, there are different types of leave that the employer has to enjoy. For example, the annual leave. This one is provided by in the law to say, for example, an employee is working for 6 days a week, he has to get about 18 days as a minimum. And also, if he is working for 5 days a week, he has to get 15 days as a minimum within a year. So I think what we need to appreciate is that this is what is provided by the law in the Employment Act. But certain employers can provide above the minimum, and that's why I'm emphasizing to say these are just the minimum that the employer can provide. And also issue of, like for example, the leave grant. This is not applicable, and it's not by law that the employer has to provide leave grant, but it's out of benevolence or goodwill that the employer is able to provide. That's why I'm saying the discretionary payments that have to be made. So these are the discretionary payments, the leave grant. And also issues of sick leave. I think you all know people tend to go sick. I think the employment law provides for sick leave, and it provides that an employee is entitled to 1 month on full pay and 1 month on half pay. And after that, then the employer has to stop paying the employee. It all depends. These are the minimums. So the employer can provide more than that, and also sometimes can continue paying the employee while sick. It all depends on what he has in his terms and conditions of service. And also at the same time, apart from the sick leave as a mandatory benefit, there's also issue of maternity leave. And I think you already know the law provides for a minimum of 2 months as the applicable maternity leave to female employees, and this has to be provided like once a year, and once every 3 years. So it's always important that we appreciate that, to say the maternity leave is always once every 3 years. So what we need to appreciate also is that, to say there is also a change in the law in 2021, whereby the law provides now flexible working hours for people who are lactating, or the employees who are lactating, or who are breastfeeding hiding their kids, or maybe they are due for pregnant. I mean, they are due for delivery, or maybe there are some sicknesses related to the pregnancy. So you might have to be flexible with them. And apart from that, there's also parental leave, which is also required by law, that we can be able to provide parental leave to the male employees for at least 2 weeks every 3 years. But there has to be proof to say that really the man has got a baby. So there has to be a proof to that effect. And this one also was in light of the amendment that happened in 2011 of the Employment Act of 2000. Apart from that, the Employment Act also provides for overtime to employees, to say when the employees are working, this is whereby they are working extra hours beyond the normal working hours, or even sometimes when they are working like weekends, which are not supposed to be working, or even when they are working on a public holiday. So there is the ordinary overtime, which is now work which is done beyond the normal working hours on a normal working day. For example, you are entitled to 8 hours, but you work more than 8 hours, like 10 hours. So the extra 2 hours are counted as overtime, and instead of counting them at 1 hour, it's saying, the law says one has to provide 1.5 times the hour. So for example, you have worked for 2 hours as overtime, that it will going to calculate as 3 hours instead of the normal 2 hours. So we need to appreciate that. And also when it comes to another kind of overtime, is the day of overtime. This is a day whereby we need to rest as employees. So whenever we want to rest, this for example, for employees who are working like 6 days a week, you can have 1 day off. Or maybe employees who are working for like 5 days a week, they have 2 days off. So those days, if you are being asked to work for work, you have to go for work. This is calculated as double. It is times 2 every hour that you have worked on such kind of a day off hour. So and also this is similar to holiday overtime, whereby you work on a public holiday, for example, like the Christmas Day, like the Labor Day, or any other holiday, the 6th July, Independence Day, or any other day that you have been asked to work. Then you find that you are working as double. It's just like the holiday, the day of overtime. So this is what we need to appreciate, to say, and we need to also appreciate to say this overtime, according to the law, it provides to each and every employee who is in the organization. But sometimes organization would put a limit to say up to this level, these people cannot claim overtime, because ordinarily the overtime has to be approved by someone. So sometimes people are in a supervisory position whereby it's difficult for them also to seek approval somewhere, because they are already people to make the decisions. So and also the law tend to provide the need for good working conditions for the employees, like change rooms, and even good lighting, ventilation, all that kind of furniture that the employees have, and also the safety of the workplace, to ensure that is far from contracting diseases. The employees are far from contracting diseases and all that. So all that, these are some of the things, and I think these things are in light now of the Occupational Safety, Health and Welfare Act. So even how safe the workplace is, how disability friendly the workplace is, and so how even supporting people with disabilities and all that. So all those things are also the obligations of an employer as per law, and the mandatory benefits that he has to provide to the employees. And apart from beyond these mandatory benefits, there's also an element of discretionary benefits. So you talk about discretionary benefits like the medical schemes. You find that for the medical scheme now, it's the duty of each and every employer to look at, to say, okay, because it's not provided by law, but it's up to the employer to decide whether he should be able to put his or her employees on medical aid. Maybe MASIM, MediHealth, and the other service providers. And also you talk about issues like funeral benefits. issues like transport, coffin, even support to the funeral and all that. These are, I know some employers, apart from after death, they are able to provide maybe salary, 1 month salary, 2 month salary, some organizations up to 1 year salary to the employee, to the deceased relations. And but what we need to appreciate is that though those things are not covered by law, but it's up to each and every employer to decide on his own. So issues like coffin, unfortunately, the law doesn't provide for an employer to provide coffin or transport or remains, to carry the remains to the final resting place, unfortunately. So I think all these things, we should be able to appreciate them as things which the law that doesn't provide. Issues like medical scheme, I've talked about the funeral benefits, and also at the same time issues like telephone allowances, airtime or internet bundles. It's not like provided by the law, but the employers tend to provide such kind of things out of goodwill, or as a duty facilitating things, to say you can only work better if you have this kind of things. But also there's an element of the vehicle and the telephone allowance, which also maybe the employer tend to provide. School fees for children, for example, performance-related bonuses. These are not required by law, but the employer tend to provide as per terms and conditions of service. Issues like the salary increments, the law doesn't provide for salary increments, for example. Leave grant, it's not, the employer is not providing, it's not required to provide leave grant, but these are done out of goodwill, and also as a matter of motivating the employees. Issues to do with the gratuity, it's not required by law. Sometimes these things are like provided as per the terms and conditions of service of the employer, but also at the same time they are provided as per whatever the employees have agreed with the employer, the employer has agreed with the employee. So these are some of the things which you need to appreciate when you talk about discretionary and also mandatory payments or benefits which are applicable within the workplace setup. So I think in a nutshell, these are some of the things which we need to be able to appreciate. So whatever we do in organizations, let us be able to appreciate the difference between the discretionary and also the mandatory payments that have to be made to employees. And we should be able to look at what is it that we can afford. Because what I've observed in most organizations, we might have the terms and conditions of service, which are like beautiful, with a lot of things, but maybe we cannot be able to implement even half of what is in the terms and conditions. So you should be able to have certain things which are in light of the law, which are the mandatory things, and also let us also isolate the discretionary things which the employer can provide. And only the discretionary things, whenever, because at the end of the day, when you have the terms and conditions of a contract, that's binding, which the employer has to always to provide, because you cannot promise someone to be providing something yet you cannot be able to achieve that particular thing. So I think in this session, what we need to appreciate is that as employers, you have to go a duty to ensure whatever you have promised to be providing to your employees, you're able to provide. And also as employees, you have got a duty to ensure that whatever the employer is promising you to provide is able to provide. So I hope you have enjoyed this video where we have discussed issues of the mandatory and also the discretionary payments that have to be made to employees. I would like to thank you for watching. Thank you.